In this episode, I chat with Daria Pająk about overcoming adversity and preparing mentally for competition and more. I'm Timm Young, and this is The Bowler's Mind. All right, Daria, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Very nice you're doing that for bowlers in the bowling community.
I'm sure you have told this story a million times before, but for anyone who hasn't heard, would you kind of give us just a brief history of your bowling career, how you started, and then kind of what brought you into the pros?
Yeah, so the shortest way I can say, I started bowling in 99. I was 5 years old. And then 6 years old. And that was the first bowling center that was in the country of Poland, where I'm from.
Okay.
So it was absolutely new to everyone. We didn't know much about the game, but we loved it. I'm saying we because me and my parents went there for the first time. My dad signed up for the first leagues. My mom joined him. We're bowling like little tournaments. I was already 7, 8. Later, they opened a bowling center in my hometown when I started to practice a lot. And then there was a bowling association in
Okay.
Poland to where you could try to make the national team, and they were hosting like national championships. And from the young age, probably because I loved bowling and I was bowling a lot, and there was not that many people that started as early as me and became so obsessed with the game. I feel like I had a little bit of an edge, but when I was 11, I went for my first national championship, and I was the underdog. Nobody knew who I was. I was a small girl from small town, and I ended up winning the category for under 15 and also
Wow.
under 19. So
Wow.
being 11, I did beat people that were 18 years old. And once again, it was a developing sport in Poland. So you cannot compare it to anything like in the US for youth. But that was a very big accomplishment on its own. And that's when I was first sent to European Youth Championships in Germany. And that's when I saw what bowling really was. That's when, the boys from Scandinavia, Germany, like high boxing, lots of rev rate. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn. So this is what it's all about. Like, if I think about it, I think about this cartoon moment when a person walks in and then they have googly eyes and they're just overwhelmed.
Right.
That was it for me. And I was like, that back then I knew what I wanted. I remember I averaged 149 for the tournament, being I think grade 12, which is not good, it's not bad, but it was a sports shot, first international
Yeah.
event. And then I was starting to work with my first coach. He was the one that taught me bowling as a sport. I was never that person that just came in to have fun in the bowling center and maybe bowl leagues. I always trained to become a better bowler because that's the only thing I knew how it's done. So I was practicing with him. We had a strict regime, anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week. We were working on my technique. I was still growing, so we were changing my ball fit.
Sure.
We're trying to teach me all the basics of bowling. I really respect him for teaching me that bowling is a sport. We were doing drills. We were only having one game for a score during an hour and a half practice sessions, one-on-one I had with him. And I also think I'm privileged being able to have someone with me at the young age teaching me about the game that led me to win everything there was to win. At the age of 16 in Poland, I had won every single competition against women and men. And that's when I was going for European Youth Championships. I was winning my first medals on the international arena. But something happened to where I started winning everything in Poland. And I'm not going to say there was not much competition because it wasn't coming with much ease, but I was still winning a lot. But then I was being sent to like adult tournaments or like even youth tournaments, and I couldn't get golds. I couldn't perform as well as I was in Poland. I could see that the massive difference between the level of bowling in my country and level of bowling in the other countries. I stopped progressing. I was working just as hard. I was practicing just as hard at the age of 15, 16. I stopped progressing. If anything, I was bowling worse and worse. And then, back then there was no like YouTube wasn't big. There was no bowling on TV. I didn't see much of this modern bowlers, but what I saw was like, Team USA on World Cups. So like Tommy Jones was probably the first name I can think of because I saw his game and I'm like, damn, why I don't practice to bowl like him? I don't understand. And that's when we had the very first argument with my coach. I was like, I don't want to have a glove. I don't want to bowl up 5. I don't want you to put stick under my armpit to hold my shoulder high. Like, I don't understand. Like, my brain couldn't comprehend that that's what I want. That's when the best bowlers are bowling like. But why do I bowl like this?
Mm.
Like, I don't understand. And we start to have first like debates because when I was small, my parents didn't know much about bowling. They were just bowlers and they were
Mm-hmm.
bowling. I didn't know much. I liked practicing. I liked getting better. But there came the time when I just plateau, and I started seeing differences between how I train and how the other bowlers bowl. And that's when we have fell apart with my coach. I did ask him if we can go to see another coach that was a gold level certified,
Mm-hmm.
was very amazed with my game at the age I was. And he wanted to help me. I asked my coach if we can, we can have another set of eyes. So maybe he has some ideas because I am not improving. And unfortunately, that caused a massive fallout. It didn't end very well.
Mm.
I'm still a little bit bitter of how it had all gone because on my side, I just, I wanted to be fair. So I started coaching with the coach. I'm also coaching up to this day. We reunited during COVID. But anyway, that's when my game started becoming to where it is. Costas would teach me everything what there is to bowling. He would, for the first time, take my shots on the camera, compare it to Tommy Jones, Chris
Mm-hmm.
Barnes, and stuff. He said, you have physically the ability to bend your elbows. Like, what does it mean? It's like, yeah, that's why you have more rev rate because you physically are getting under the ball by using your elbow, which is what the best bowlers that have rev rate, that's what they do. That's the path we're going to take. You have that. I don't have to teach you. We have to just, change here and there. So, yeah, basically, he created me the bowler that I am. I had gotten some more medals for European Youth Championships. I had made some cuts for adult championships in Europe. And then I met Sid Allen, one of the probably best coaches in the world. He, I think, was either he's still taking care of Teal Singapore or he used to. I'm actually not sure now. But he's like, hey, Daria, there is that school. It's called Weber International. They work with Kegel Training Center. I'm sure that if you wanted to, you could get a scholarship. So just have that in mind, like you can bowl and do your degree. And I was mind blown. I was like, you mean I can do like a degree and also like bowl for the
Mm.
school? That's when I was looking it up. And I think Diana paved the way for me because Diana is, I think she is a year or two older than me. So she did go to Weber 2 years before me when I already had heard about it. And it's also because she was being coached by Sid Allen when she was back in Latvia. So she did know about the program.
Mm.
So I got in touch with her being like, hey, I think I want to go. I was so oblivious to everything associated with colleges. I never looked into other colleges. I was just like, okay, wherever I go. And yeah, I filed for my visa. I picked up my visa the day I was leaving to US, and that's how my college bowling career had started.
Very cool.
And from there, yeah, PWBA came back when I was in the last year of my senior year in college. I didn't think much of it. I was like, okay, cool. Never really thought I would become professional, but we are here today. So I think everything was meant to be.
That's an awesome story. Do your parents still bowl?
Yeah, they're more obsessed with bowling than anybody I know. My dad is 64, my mom is 61, my dad is 64 two-handed. He switched to two hands after seeing Belmonte
Okay.
in maybe 2006 or 2008 Youth World Championships. And ever since, he always put me in that awful situation when, my parents don't speak English and my dad would be like, hey, can you go to him and tell him that because of him, I bowl two-handed. So like imagine young me, like barely speaking English, like tapping Belmo on the shoulders, like,
Yeah.
hey Belmo, my dad wants to say thank you. And then Belmo's full was like, oh, because of you, he bowls two-handed and he just wanted you to know. It's like, okay, cool. So like that's how like I developed some relationships with the players that I'm friends with right now. And Belmo is one of the examples. It's because from when I was super small, I was always forced like, hey, talk to him and tell him this, thank you and stuff. So yeah, they bowl a senior tournament in Europe.
Okay.
The senior tour is becoming really big in Europe, and they also bowl everything they can in Poland. They absolutely love the sport. They watch everything they can on YouTube. They watch Bowl TV. They watch PBA. Even though they speak zero English, my mom does a little bit. My mom zero. Like they don't mind that they don't really understand what's being talked about, what the format of the tournament is, what they're actually watching sometimes. Sometimes it can be a live stream tournament
Yeah.
from the US, but they have no idea what it is, but they're just watching.
Right.
And that's the level of obsessiveness that I have not reached quite yet. But I think it's really cool that they're so passionate about it.
That's very cool. Uh, Earlier you mentioned that I can't recall which coach you mentioned did this, but that you would only keep score for one game, but you practice for an hour and a half. Do you
Yes.
think that's important, especially for younger bowlers who are starting out to do that? Just work on drills and work on skills and not worry about score at first.
It's very hard to know what works for everyone, right? I had fun in knowing I was getting better. And when you're like young, you can see the progress really fast, right? You go from 100 average to 120 in the blink of an eye, and then from 120 to 140, from 140, and so on and so forth. It's really important to make bowling fun. So when you're super young, it's not just to go and throw balls, but once you get to some sort of mental frames to where like you know you want to go on youth tournaments and stuff, you need to understand that there is so much you can achieve by just throwing a bowling ball and be like getting repetition in, but there is so much that can be done when you're young to actually mold your game to whatever you want it to be. And I think I understood it quite young, and thanks to the first coach that had taught me that, like if you work on timing. Your timing is gonna get better. When it gets better, you feel more comfortable. When you feel more comfortable, the tournaments you perform better, and all we want to do is win, right? It's that endorphins that come in whenever you throw a good shot, or you strike for the win, or you are on the highest on the podium. It's that feeling that you're chasing, and I think I understood that feeling from the moment I won my first youth championships, and I've always been chasing it. And I think I understood that the only way to chase it is by working on my game rather than bowling for fun.
What do you love most about Poland?
I love the people. We are very caring and not getting much into politics because we all get
Sure.
overwhelmed with information. But we did have the war start in 2021 between Russia and
Mm.
Ukraine. And unfortunately, that caused a massive wave of refugees
Mm.
coming into Poland because we are bordering with Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and it was usually mothers with children running away from war. And the thing that Polish people did, it's gonna be something that I have goosebumps thinking about it. But even me, I would go to like stores and prepare massive packages for the military, and
Mm-hmm.
you would take it to sometimes the transportation companies that will have buses, like tourist buses going from Poland to Ukraine, they would change into getting everything that they might need, either the army or the people, all the donations from Polish people. You would find a place that you can leave this, and they would just drive it across the border, risking their life, right? Because you
Sure.
had rockets falling from the
Right.
sky. You would know what was happening. But the coolest thing that Polish people did is that in every train station, they set up booths with everything for free that they might need. There was booths with hot food, there were booths with cold snacks, there were booths with shoes for women,
Mm.
men, and kids. There were clothes. And if you ever would look at the footage on YouTube and stuff, all that these people did is amazing. And they also developed that website to where whoever is willing to give a room to an Ukrainian refugee can put their address into that server and be like, hey, we can house two women and a kid, or
Mm.
but we have a dog, we have this. So then Ukrainians could go on that website and they would have a destination to go and to survive for at least few days, few weeks, or a few months until they figure out what to do next.
Wow.
And all of that had been done by Polish people. Government had nothing to do with it. It
Wow.
was not supported, it was not sponsored from the government for the very first few months of the war. But for some reason, I think because of our history in Poland
Mm-hmm.
being like the center of the two world wars, it gave us that empathy to people who suffer. We understand how it is when you are on the mercy on others. And I think that everything that had happened during the war and is happening, I think Polish people are stepping up and showing who we really are, that
Right.
we are very empathetic and caring. And that's the thing that I would always love the most about our culture and our people.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Uh, how do you mentally prepare for a tournament?
It all depends, right? Like there is a tournament that you bought a sweeper on Saturday. That mostly for me would be more based like I would take it as a training. Of course, I want to win, but let's say we're talking about big tournaments, right? Let's say we're talking about the first PWBA stuff I have to attend. So I always go by you can control what you can control, and that really helps with mental state because once you feel prepared, you feel more at ease, right? So that always starts with getting my equipment ready. making sure all my grips fit me, that I'm not gonna get to the stop and then like I suddenly cannot put my finger in because it's way too small, right?
Sure.
Those little things can really throw you off when you're meant to compete. And then like, oh my God, where is the ball? Where is my grip? Where is my thumb? So preparing my equipment, preparing my backpack, and that preparation comes from having a whole lot different heels and soles because you never know if it's gonna be slippery or tacky. You don't want to go into that risk when it's tacky. You don't have a heel, you're frantic, you're asking your friends if they have it, you go to pro shop. It takes away from being able to be present to get ready for that tournament or for, the first game. So that is definitely something I would always preach. The other thing is the mental routine at the tournament during the games. It's very important to have something to fall on, and I fall into my pre-show routine. Everyone has different one, but mine would be like, picking up the ball, wiping it, looking at my line, at the pins, thinking about my line, thinking about what I'm gonna do, and then trying to shut off my brain and just go for it. Okay. Everybody has different thought process. It's very personal. Mine is also very personal, not something I would like to share, but it's even if I was to share, I don't think it
Sure.
would help. But having just that routine
Right.
is a very important thing. So the mental preparation, I don't think there is something that I would tell you like, yeah, meditate 3 days before tournament. I
Right.
visualize. I sometimes when I'm like in that training regime, when I practice a lot before the tour, when I'm laying in the bed, I find myself bowling. I find myself visualizing a tournament and then like going through the process. But I don't know if I'm doing it to help myself go to sleep or I'm doing it for the better outcome of the tournament. I find myself really enjoying if I have a lot of things on my mind, because we all have private lives and some things are not always great. I feel like thinking of bowling and thinking of like, okay, let's see how I would approach a short pattern, right? And in my head, I'm bowling on shorts and throwing this and that ball and this happens. And I just do that. So a lot of people would say it's a visualization, and I would agree. However, for me, it wasn't forced to like visualize. It just came very naturally. So that would be one of the things if you were trying to prepare for the tournament. I guess it's nice to look at the picture of the bowling center if you're gonna bowl somewhere you don't know, and just like try to visualize bowling in that. So that way, when you walk in, it doesn't feel that overwhelming, that different than it normally would walking into a new bowling center that you had not bowled before.
Do you think that the mind cannot tell the difference between actually practicing and visualizing practice? Visualizing
Yeah,
great shots?
I've read a lot of mental game books, and that's what they preach. They say that the mind cannot really feel or see the difference, but I don't know if that's true. I haven't really experienced that myself, but I do definitely think that it puts it more at ease. So when I was bowling my first TV show, that's what I was trying to visualize. And because I had some experience of bowling a TV show for Weber International University when we won our national title with the team, the day before I was very anxious and I was like trying to like feel how it's gonna be like. And then I was bowling my first TV show in Detroit. I did the same process. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be really bright. It's gonna be really quiet. So in my mind, I was visualizing how it is. And the moment I stepped foot on that TV set, I don't know, it was adrenaline or what was it. I felt like I'm in the right spot. And
Mm,
whether it was because of visualization or anything I cannot think of right now, I cannot tell you.
sure.
But if anything, it definitely helps. If it really, really, really helps, maybe for some, maybe for me, I don't know.
You've
Yeah.
had to overcome some adversity in your career, which something most recently was you had an elbow injury.
Yeah.
How is your elbow now? And could you then kind of tell me the story of kind of what led up to you injuring your elbow, how that happened?
Yeah, so I am double jointed. I can even show you like this. My
Mm,
elbow bends
mm,
very drastically the other way. And unfortunately, that causes joints to get weaker. And I'm just built that way. So with years and years and years of bowling and practicing, and I've always had issues with my elbow. Not very bad. I would always feel a little bit of pain. I'll try to warm it up. But in 2021, that's when I went on practice and I threw a few shots and I felt a sharp pain. And I'm like, wow, that's not good.
mm,
I tried to throw another shot and my hand would just give up, would just open, I would drop the ball
mm.
because it would be a shooting pain. So I started going to the doctors. I got my MRI. They say it's inflammation. They said we can fight it through doing a lot of different like plasma injections, magnetic pulse. If I told you I tried everything that was possible I could get my hands on, I did. I was at the time in Poland, which then just getting medicated in Poland is a little bit easier and cheaper on its own, and all the treatments. So I could really try all I could, from red light therapy through magnetic therapy through something I'm not sure how that called it in the US, but it's plasma injections,
Mm-hmm.
to where they draw your blood, they put it in the machine, they spin it, the white cells go up, they inject it back in. It's meant to help restore whatever had happened in that elbow quicker. So I did that twice. I bowled very little before the tour of 2022. I still struggled a lot. My hand was getting very swollen. I was in pain. I was on medication. But that's when I realized there's only four ways really that really helped me to manage my injury. The first and most important was a warm up. I've always tried to warm up. I don't think I was warming it up well enough.
Mm.
And then I found that accessory that helps you warm up your grip. It just looks very weird. You just like keep squeezing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have your hands straight in front of you and you squeeze it really hard until it gets fatigued, you can feel it all the way through your elbow that's warming up.
Okay.
So now whenever I bowl, you would always see me. That's like, I cannot bowl without this. Like, I'm not going to go and throw a shot without using it, because I'm also terrified. Like, it can happen, will happen in 2021. The second thing would be an elbow band. I've gone through so many different elbow bands until one day I've gotten a message from a physical therapist saying like, "Hey Daria, I developed this elbow band. I would love to send it to you because it really has helped me and other people. I really think it's going to help you. I don't need any endorsement, anything." I think he was quite of an older guy. He didn't really care about all the marketing fuzz about his product, and he sent it to me, and I absolutely fell in love. It's the band that wraps around your elbow, but it has two plates that stick out, and you're meant to put those plates in the areas that hurt, to where you actually really need to put pressure instead of putting the pressure all around the elbow, what causes swelling, inflammation, discomfort. So I started using that, and it absolutely changed how my elbow would feel during the block. The third thing will be icing it, like icing it as much as possible after doing any type of physical activity that involves the elbow, the forearm. So after bowling, icing it as much as possible before going to sleep, icing it. And the last but not least would be working out. The moment I start to work out my shoulders again, my upper back, my forearms, and my grip, that's when I noticed that I'm experiencing less and less
Mm.
pain. So I did neglect my upper body workouts, thinking like, I don't want to get tight. I
Mm.
don't want to lift too heavy for my chest, shoulders, biceps, triceps, because I felt like when I was going to bowling, something like that was tight. And in my head, I was right away thinking that's not a good thing. So I did neglect my upper body workouts in 2021, which I do believe has led me to really have that injury.
Mm.
So it was a learning curve, but that's exactly what had worked. And now it's absolutely under control. I have to be always careful, and I forever will have to be careful. But it's not inflamed. It doesn't hurt me. Sometimes when it helps when it hurts me, just few ibuprofen, like 2, 3 pills of ibuprofen when it's really bad, I would take. But other than that, I no longer take any prescription meds for pain, which is great because my stomach couldn't handle them anymore in 2022. So yeah, everybody is different, but for now, I feel like it's under control. I'm very happy that I'm no longer bowl in pain, or I don't need to have a surgery.
I think ibuprofen is probably a great friend to all bowlers.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
So obviously in 2022, the elbow obviously hampered your performance. You just finished the 2023 season,
Mm-hmm.
and no one would ever doubt that you are one of the most talented bowlers on tour, but obviously didn't probably have the season you'd hope for. Do you feel like, and for any reason, that you're in a slump or in a growing period, or what can people expect from Daria in 2024?
I cannot really put expectations to people's heads. I feel like people have very high expectations towards me because of my early success in 2017 and because of my physical game, right? I feel like a lot of players try to mold their game to mine. Physical game does not always equal results. And this year, I think we can say straight up, I think that season quite sucked for me. I made one TV show, one finals. It wasn't on TV, it was about TV, but I did want to make one finals early on in the season that I'm very happy about. I made all the regular tournament cuts. I did not make cut for Queen's Major. I didn't make a cut for US Open, which is absolutely devastating for a bowler to miss such a big event. But it's a growing process and learning. I can tell you now that there's been a lot going on in my personal life with having my visa revoked in 2020 and living in Poland, traveling for the US in 2021 and 2022, the same thing. I was not living in the US. I was traveling
Okay.
constantly. So when I settle here finally in Utah, where I feel like, okay, I can finally get this done. Maybe I was not quite ready yet. It was just a few months when that happened before the tour started. So I feel like for 2024, I'm more at peace. I'm more situated in my life. I know that Utah is where I belong, so I no longer have to travel back and forth. So that is going to help me a lot. I've been struggling a lot with my physical game. I think a lot of it had to do with some bad choices I had made in my physical game to make changes that I had followed. Some of the advices that I feel like shouldn't have followed. I really, really struggled. I had a very hard time finding joy in bowling because I was just on the lanes, unsure where the ball is gonna go. So even though you would see one clip of me or two clips, someone was like, "Oh my God, she bowls awesome. She has high backswing and the rev rate." It did not reflect in the scores because what's the most important thing in bowling is to be repetitive, you
Right.
know? So even if the lanes fall into my game to where I could really perform, if in the 10th frames I had two bad shots and those bad shots would give me 5, 6, 7 split,
Mm.
this is no longer a good game. You have to be able to repeat, and that's something I had not been able to do very well. Doesn't matter how much I practice or not, my game is still coming to where I want it to go, which might sound crazy to a lot of people being like, oh my God, why is she working on her game? It's because when we practice, our heart rate is at peace, we're not nervous. There's a lot of foul line corrections that our
Mm.
brain, our body is meant to do because we're more relaxed. Nothing feels rushed. So even if you have a mistake in your physical game that you don't see with your naked eye when you practice, it doesn't bother you. It's many times it's because your body finds a way to correct it as you walk, as you release it. So you don't feel like it's a problem. But then you come to very highly stressful situations like, final strike for the win, whatever that would be, right? And then suddenly you feel like you cannot throw the ball where you want it.
Mm-hmm.
Something is off for your game, and then you all blame it on your mental game, which is a very big part of bowling. It's a massive part of bowling. But sometimes those errors that are core, it's also because your physical game is not solid enough to perform under pressure because your brain has no longer time to do those small correction it was doing during the practice. So now all those mistakes, they just pop out and you are like, oh my God, I've never done this before.
Mm.
But when you work with a coach that is very knowledgeable, he will be able to tell you what is happening and how your body is compensating as you are on the approach and how your body is not able to compensate when you are bowling a tournament. So bowling is such a complex game. It's always
Mm-hmm.
easy to find excuses. It's always easy to
Yeah.
blame something or someone. But this year, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming my mental game. I'm not blaming my physical game. I'm not blaming coaches. I'm not blaming balls, nothing. Everything that is to blame is me as a whole. I have to figure it out how to get it right, how to perform to my expectations and to expectations of many of people that follow me and root for me deeply. So it's all on me. And I understand that. I don't feel pressure, but yet I'm feeling excited that even though this year wasn't good, I have so many months to really work on the things that I believe need work on. And that includes my head, my mental game, it includes my physical game, and it includes knowing my equipment better. All of that, just having the plan and the program for it, it excites me that I can do everything I can in my power to get and become better bowler up to the expectations that I have set on myself.
What is at the top of your list right now that you're working on?
I'm working on my backswing and my body angles. I have decided to lower my backswing because it has gone really high this year. That created a different role. I became more tilty, so the ball had more tilt, which meant that many times it was flying through the spot and not seeing the lanes. So I left more 2 8-10s and 2 10s and worst shots
Mm.
I've ever had in my life. But as the tour was going on, I didn't catch that being such a big problem until I realized that my ball motion is not what I want it to be. I have very little margin down lane and I was trying to figure out why. And then it was enough to look at my ball roll really closely and be like, wow, I've never had this much amount of tilt. So just getting my ball motion to where I want it to be, to where it can really benefit my game and give me a little bit more margin down lane, is something that's the top of my priority list, which I actually have already gotten down. So it's more about
Right.
repeating it all over and over again. And also lower my backswing. My backswing has gone so high to where at the tournaments it will get even higher. That will throw my timing point off. It will throw
Mm.
my follow through, my body angles with shot. I will not be able to repeat it as much as I wish. So my backswing has gotten lower because of that, but also because of my elbow injury. The higher the backswing is, the more my elbow is going to hyperextend the other way, which causes pain in the long run. So those are the changes that had to be made, and that's what I'm currently working on.
Seems to be always like a domino effect. When you
Always
adjust or
is.
change one thing in bowling, then 5 other things get affected, and you got to fix those.
Yeah, always. And I think that's why we love it. You know, you can never get it to where you want it to be, and then you just bowl. I feel
Right.
like the mistakes and the old habits like always have a tendency to creep up on you in the moments when you think you have everything, under control, and you're like, hello, no.
Right.
Let's see your old friend again. What about late timing? How are you feeling about having late timing again? Let's do it. And then you're like, oh my God, like really?
Right.
So yeah, that's the beauty of our sport.
I had the privilege of going to the Kegel Training Center earlier this year and working with Ruben, which, if anyone out there is looking for a coach, Ruben's like a wizard. And just in a short period of time of watching me, he just corrected a little bit of my trail leg, which was coming way too far behind me, and it was causing my hips to open and my shoulders were overcompensating. And so he got me just to bring my trail leg in more, and it was amazing how much that small little tweak helps accuracy. So
Yeah, I
definitely,
agree. It's just that the better the coach, the faster they can spot what is causing your struggles, because everybody has stuff that they can work on in their game. At the end of the day, we don't know what's perfect game. Like, we don't know. The perfect game is the one that can be repeatable and can win,
right.
right? But everybody's repeatability is gonna be different, because if I'm built one way, I'm not going to be able to do stuff that somebody else can do being built the other way. So a good coach is the person that sees your body, see how you bow, and be like, hey, that needs changing.
Mm.
Before we do anything else, I know that if we change this, it's going to really help your game. And coaches at Kegel Training Center are awesome. So I would always recommend everybody to go and get a lesson if they are trying to fix something in the physical game.
Earlier, you were talking about your elbow bend, being able to get underneath the ball more and creating more rev rate. What is the best drill to help a bowler learn to do that?
There's a lot of them. It's really a hard concept, A lot of people have developed an elbow bend, especially men, because it came naturally. They were trying to figure out a way how to get more rev rate. And for some reason, men were able to figure it out a lot easier and earlier in their bowling life than women. And I do believe that there is a stigma around women that we can or cannot do things certain way, that women are being coached different than men. And I'm trying to kill that stigma. I've
Mm.
been preaching it for many years now, that women can if they want to. They don't have to. We have the best women in the world who are straighter players, bowling with the glove. They win titles. They're
Sure.
phenomenal. A lot of people are not going to reach the level of success that they do, but what I'm trying to tell everyone, you can be whoever you want to
Mm.
be. You can try to be coached or to train
Sure.
to where you want to bring your game. So a lot of men have figured out the way of how to do it without having someone break down, like you have to do this and this and that. It just
Mm.
came naturally. So you have a lot of people that have been bowling for a year or two, and they have a lot of rev rate. I'm not saying it's created the right way, but they have a lot of rev rate. Some people that have bowled for many, many years, and then they're trying to gain more rev rate, learning the elbow bend and the timing of it, it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's something that does not come easy. Your scores are going to drastically drop because your accuracy is going to be all over the place. The ball speed is going to drop. But for those who really want it, it's really worth it. There's many drills you can do, like starting with a foul and release or throwing the ball onto the floor. It's very hard to explain it verbally, but I have posted some of them on my YouTube or some of them on my social media. But actually, I have also developed something that I call Power Academy. It's an online bowling course where I have uploaded over 5.5 hours of in-depth explanation of the power game. I have gone through all the drills, practice sessions, how someone can achieve it. I have over 600 members, which is really cool.
Very cool.
People that are learning how to do it. I created that because I have seen that bowling is lacking straightforward explanations why things are happening or things are not happening. Like having reverie, it's not caused by cupping your wrist. Okay, we have to get this out of the way once and for all. It's also not just cause for keeping your fingers stiff and lifting the ball with your fingers. For me, release starts in a downswing. So when someone talks about the release, I know we're talking about when that ball leaves the hand.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, if you're working on the release, it starts on the moment when the ball is coming from the downswing, and that's when the elbow bend happens, and it unbends at the moment of the pure release when you are by your ankle. The elbow unbends, unloads. That's when we turn our hand to create more or less axis. So the release on its own, it's not just when the ball is by your ankle and you're about to release it. If you're working on the reverent power game, for me and just for me, the release starts in the downswing, because if we're going to work on your release and having you create more power, more rev rate, we're going to focus more on your downswing than we're going to focus on the release on its own.
You talked about social media, that you've got some videos on there, and I think that's a great segue to the fact that, as far as I know, you have more Instagram followers than any professional bowler, male or female, out there. And I was wondering if you could share to anyone who's trying to build their social media following, what has worked for you?
Well, I think I started very early because I opened my Facebook page, athlete page in 2017. And, 2017 doesn't seem that far away,
Mm-hmm.
but it had been 6 years and social media had came long ways in 6 years. And I remember when I was like talking to my friends, being like, hey, I think I'm going to open like my Facebook page. I never called it a fun page. I don't like calling it a fun page. It's just a page that I share my drills, my practice, my
Sure.
everything, my tournaments, everything connected with bowling. So I opened it and I remember like the looks I was getting when I was creating the videos. At first, I was being called an influencer. I was kind of making fun of by just putting myself out there. It quickly stopped after I won my first title months later, and people were gaining more. I was gaining more and more engagement on my pages, but that's back when social media was not really a big thing for bowlers. So I think just being transparent with a lot of people about how I feel about certain things, and just posting stuff that it might be very vulnerable to many, and sharing my journey and my struggles, I think it helps other people to resonate with me. See me as a person, see me as a human, not a robot. My pages are not there to be a marketing platforms, to market everything that I'm there to market like 900 global bowling balls because I'm with them. I'm
Sure.
with them because I love the equipment. I've chosen to be with them. Every sponsor I'm with, I'm choosing to be with them. I'm gonna market them, but my platforms are not for that. My platforms are to spread awareness for bowling, to teach those who need some tips, to connect with people that feel about bowling the same way I feel about bowling. And quickly later, I opened my Instagram. I started posting a lot more. Instagram was not as popularized as Facebook back in 2017. And I think my Instagram had really blew up in 2020 and 2021 when they introduced the Reels. And that's when I started working with the videographer. We're doing really nice, high quality videos that were very appealing to people that were not even bowlers, like when you see a girl throwing it with a lot of rev rate and big back thing, and it's appealing. It's something that they're like, oh my God, that can be done. Like, yeah, if you're not a bowler, you sometimes don't even realize that you can spin the ball. So I think I got a lot of people coming in from outside the bowling industry that decided to follow me because of the quality of the videos I was pushing on my social media. And that's when I managed to get to the following I have today.
Very cool. I do video production for a living, so I always admired the lighting in those videos. I really, really liked that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of work, to be fair, but
It is. People don't realize how much work it takes to make a video look really good, and a lot of it is lighting.
Yeah, and my purpose is like, to spread awareness to bowling and to connect with bowlers, but also I would like bowling to get outside of the frames of where we are locked in so much. Like bowling is just bowlers. I want bowling to be seen by other people, and social media had allowed us to had bowling been seen by people that have never maybe bowled in their life, or they had been, but just for fun, birthday party.
Sure.
I want them to see what it's really like, because maybe it's gonna spark some interest, attention. The more sparks I get, the more bowlers I can get coming to our sport. And I think that's something that we as a community of bowlers have realized some time ago, that the more we post about it, the more we talk about it, the more people might get that interest in bowling and join us. And our community is going to keep growing and growing, and bowling eventually will keep growing as a sport.
Where would you like to see bowling go?
Everywhere. I want it to be the best and biggest, sport in the world. I
Yeah.
don't think that's ever gonna happen, because bowling is a tough sport to understand. For a lot of people, just taking a bowling ball and knocking 10 pins. Like, I think it was so big back in the day because you had one bowling ball, the task was easy, knock down the ball, the pins. People understood it. Now that technology is going and is becoming so advanced, we change balls all the time, so we draw them different ways to get as much as advantage as we possibly can. I think this part of bowling is not very understood, and because of that, it's harder to watch. Like some of the
Right.
most popular sports that people like to follow are very easy to understand what's the purpose of it. We understand purpose of bowling, but for some it's like that's so boring. It's just like the same thing over and over again. Because a lot of people don't realize that we are facing invisible environments. And there's different covers on the bowling ball. One ball is gonna hook a lot more, one is gonna hook less. We have to figure out which one is gonna be the one that's gonna strike more than the other. It's a lot of physics in it, a lot of
Right.
chemistry for people that build bowling balls.
Right.
So this is the part that it's not very well known, and I think that makes bowling not very appealing for people that are not bowlers. So figuring out the way of how to make it more appealing for those who don't bowl, it's a big struggle for our community or for our industry overall. It's like, how do we get more bowlers? How do we how do we get parents to choose bowling as a sport for their kids?
Right.
Because why would you choose bowling if you can choose football, soccer, volleyball, anything that you want? Like, why would you choose bowling? And it starts with rewiring people's brain and get different image of bowling than what people already have when they think of bowling, killing the stigma about our sport, just changing it. And that lays in the hands of bowlers, and that also lays in the hands of organizations. They have to be the ones pressing bowlers to do things certain way, so that way we can change the image of our game slowly but steadily towards what we want it to be.
I like it. In 2017, you were Rookie of the Year. What advice would you give Hope Gramley, who just won Rookie of the Year this past season?
I think it's very hard to give someone an advice, someone who is as talented as she is and bowler that is already on the PWBA tour. I would just give her an advice not to get her success get in her head, because it's easy to get expectations really high. It's very easy to come into the next bowling tournament and PWBA stop and being like, oh, I'm gonna make the show. Like, I think I'm gonna make the show, and you stop cherishing those moments where you make the first cut, when you make the second cut. You find kind of like your expectations are overburdening all the other struggles that you have thought, and you came on top, and you stopped really giving yourself tap on the shoulder and being like, hey, great job. It's because your expectations are so far there that you forget to like really pat yourself on the shoulder for the little victories that take you all the way to where you want to get. So I would just tell her to like cherish every moment, and always when she's struggling or not, when she has success, to always give herself a credit for where she came from, what she did. And I'm feeling like she's doing great so far.
Absolutely. What's your favorite 900 global ball at the moment?
Reality.
Okay.
Hands down, reality, I think, is the best big asymmetrical ball ever made in the history. And you can quote me on that. I really don't think there is a better big asymmetrical ball on the market that is better than reality.
The Reality has an asymmetrical core, along with a newer release like the Eternity. But then you've got the Zen that's symmetrical. For those who might be considering their next piece of equipment, could you explain how those two different cores react on the lanes?
So for those who don't know, the asymmetrical cores are going to be the ones that they go, and then once they see the friction, they flip. The core flips, and it kind of goes forward, okay? So you can say that those asyms give you the sharp hook, but many times the sharp hook is finished off with the roll phase. Sometimes it's too long for some. Sometimes it causes you to leave a lot of flat tensions, depending on what angles you want. But that's what the
Ball speed
asymmetrical
and
core
everything
does
else.
to the ball. Yeah, it flips, and then it flips really sharply, and then it rolls. The symmetrical balls, of course, depending on how the core is built and what the ball is meant to do, they're going to have a smoother transition because they don't have a core that is asymmetric that's going to flip when it sees the dry. So it's going to feel the transition a lot smoother, be rounder. And because of that energy that it's like wasting very slowly because it's not flipping that drastically like an asym core, it's going to have more continuous motion in the pins. So that is the difference between asym and symmetrical ball. I don't know if we can say that Zen and Eternity fall into those categories, as I say, because Zen has rather a forward core. So the Zen ball likes to roll forward in the back, even though it's a symmetrical ball. So they might be a lot closer to each other than any difference to one asym and one symmetrical ball you would give me as an example.
Okay. Would you recommend, or would you ever use an asym on a short pattern?
Yeah, I would definitely think that everybody has different preferences. So for me, I tend to like pin down layouts a lot more on the asymmetrical balls than I like on the symmetrical balls. For some reason, the asyms with the pin-up layouts don't look nearly as good as they do with the pin down layouts. So I definitely would say that it's a good ball for short pattern, but it depends. It depends if you are playing straighter and fast and by the gutter, or you're hooking the whole lane, because the way that the short patterns progress is that we want to be as close to the gutter as we can, if we can, and play straighter. But once it opens up and you move left, then you want to really create a lot of angle for the ball to burn up and really feed off that friction and burn up and just roll to the pocket. So all the big balls that can do that, get to the spot, hook, and then really burn up, giving you the control in the back, are the balls I would suggest for shorter patterns. Not necessarily saying that symmetric is going to be better than asymmetric.
Cool. A couple more questions. Who or what has had the biggest influence on your life and bowling career?
I think it's my dad. My dad has always been a strong figure in my family. My parents had my sister when they were very young. So my mom was a housewife from a very young age, and my dad was the one that had to care for the family financially. And, Poland used to be a communistic country. It was very tough back then. My family came from almost zero, like a lot of families in Poland at the time. We didn't have much money. So that was the one that had to provide for everyone. And he was the one that was able to get me to the US. And the funny story is that, as I told you, since I met with Alan telling me about Kegel and Weber, I was like, okay, I'm going. Like in my mind, I already knew. Through the whole high school, anybody else is like, yeah, I'm gonna study in the States. But from saying that to actually taking action to like fill up the paperwork, to research for it, it's very hard. It gives you a lot of anxiety. And I remember that I graduated high school, I got my diploma, and there was the time when in Poland you had a little bit more time to file documents and everything for your college. In the US, it starts a month earlier, and I knew I had to start doing work to be in time. And then I told my dad, like, Dad, you know what? I think I want to have like 2 months off, and I'm gonna join the college in January instead of no more. I think it's September in the US. So I don't remember. It's been a while. And I remember he sat and he like, either you go now or you don't go at all. And it felt like a slap in the face. It was not nearly that, but I was so prepared to be like, okay, I'm just gonna go later. And in my head, I was already having a plan that, I'm gonna take it easy and I'm gonna go later. But he's like, no, either you go now or you don't go. And I think it's because he knew that if I was going to settle in Poland after high school, like trying to figure stuff out, it would be even harder for me to take those first steps. So he is the reason why I had to fill up all my paperwork. Everything was last minute. I legit picked up my visa to the US the same day I was taking a flight to the US, which is something that, they told me I was the last student to be admission to the school for that semester. I was the last one to join the team. I was the last one in all of that because I was waiting for so long. I was so afraid to take first steps, but he was the one that like kind of pushed me and like, whatever. And I really knew that I really wanted it, so I didn't really have a choice. So I would say he is the figure that has helped me shape my life and helped me to get where I am.
How would your close friends and family describe you?
I think that I would say that I'm very empathetic and that I have a lot of energy, that I have a lot of ideas, that I'm very caring, that I lose things all the time, that I'm often late, and that I have an ease communicating with others. That's what I would think they would say. I hope so. Maybe they're going to say, I don't know, she's terrible.
Last question. What is a question that I should have asked you today or that you wish other people would ask you in interviews like this?
Well, I don't think there's a question that you have not asked that I wish you did. I feel like our conversation had a flow to where from one question, I could tell you more of a background story explaining you who I am, what I do, and why I do what I do. So I don't think there's anything that you had missed out. But I'm super open to people that are gonna listen to that podcast to give you some feedback about like, hey, I wish you asked Daria that.
Sure.
I would be very happy to answer the questions that we had possibly missed.
Is there anything you'd like to promote before we end our conversation? Obviously, you talked about the Power Academy. Anything, Patreon, anything like that?
Yeah, I want to promote bowling. Guys, go bowl. Just go bowl. It's such an amazing sport. My parents are 60. My uncles are also 60. We all go bowling when I'm home. I love it. I don't understand why people don't bowl more. It's a sport that stays with you all your life. You can barely be able to walk, but as long as you can lift the ball and throw a shot, you will always have a community you can fall back on. Whenever you change states or countries, you are gonna be able to find bowlers. And bowlers are really cool. They take everybody with open hands. So if you're in a new place, bowling is gonna be something that's gonna be a caution for you to fall out into. It can be a way of life like it is for you, but it doesn't have to be. There is so much to bowling that I wish people would understand. So yeah, I would like to promote bowling.
Well, absolutely. Have enjoyed talking to you, and I love your passion and love for bowling, and it's really exciting to talk to other people who are so passionate about bowling. So thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll get to talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again. I hope I'm gonna go back to your podcast maybe in some time, and hopefully when I'm back in your studio, I'm gonna be like talking about my next title I win.
Absolutely,
that's a very big dream of mine. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Daria.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time on The Bowler's Mind.